Okay, I'd like to talk about three types of editing or writing feedback that you can give. The first and the most obvious is mechanical. This is the red pen type of stuff. This means you're circling a comma or a certain funny word. This is the very small stuff, and it's what people tend to do when they do feedback. Next is mid-level, and this means instead of focusing on the really little stuff, it means you're focusing on sentences and paragraphs. So there's a little bit bigger stuff. This is about whether or not the meaning of whatever piece of writing is getting across. Now third, and I think most important, is global feedback. And this goes along with the rhetorical situation, which we've talked about. That means you're going to say, okay, here's what I think your topic is, and here's what I think it should be. Or you've got this wide topic, I think you should narrow the topic. Or maybe you should include this as part of your topic. Now, you might also make comments on audience and say, I'm not sure who you're writing this to, your audience is vague. Or you might say, I think you're writing this to pre-med students, and I think you ought to be writing it to fifth graders. Global feedback is going to deal with these three parts of the rhetorical triangle. And it's the type of feedback that people tend to overlook, and it's probably the most important. Okay, now within those three types, there are three levels of feedback. The first is to simply identify a problem, or I shouldn't limit it to just problems because you can identify what's going well too. You could, on the mechanical level, you could circle a word and say, this is a weird word, or whatever. For the mid-level, you could underline a sentence and say, I'm confused by this sentence. That's identifying a problem. Or you could identify something good by just saying, I like this sentence. The next level, though, is to suggest a solution as well. So that's when you say, okay, add a period here. Or why don't you add a transition sentence like this one? And then you write a transition sentence for them. The third level is to explain rhetorical options. And essentially, this goes along with the convergent versus divergent thinking. Almost always in writing, there's not a single right answer. There's a divergent set of many answers that would work well. So if you can identify a couple of good options for the writer and let them choose the best option, that's probably the best feedback. And I think that this is important because it lets the author maintain the power. It lets the author decide what's right in the final outcome of the writing. Now you can combine these two models and you can see that in each of these three types there are three levels. Now just because identifying a problem is on the bottom doesn't mean you should not do it. If that's the best that you can do, that's actually really good feedback, to simply identify problems. What's more important is that you don't neglect the mid-level feedback and the global feedback. You definitely want to address the issues of the rhetorical situation and whether or not the meaning is getting across at the paragraph mid-level. Let me give a couple of quick examples. So if you're going to do mid-level, you're going to say, I'm confused by this paragraph. That's identifying a problem. You could help them to gather a solution by writing a specific sentence out for them. Or third, you could suggest several options in how to improve that for a particular topic and a particular reader from a particular author. This works very much the same way with global feedback. Just identifying a problem might be to say, I'm not sure who your audience is. Suggesting a solution is to say, well, why don't you write this toward fifth graders? And even better is to say, well, I like what you've done here. Would it help or consider that most readers might appreciate if you did this certain thing here throughout? So as you're doing your feedback, I want you to make sure that you address all three of those levels and that you especially don't neglect global as you're giving feedback. Now, I believe this structure is important for the assignment today. However, in your future, I think this will be helpful to you because when you're given a paper to a family member or a friend, you can say, here's the type of feedback I'm looking for, and then they can give you what you find valuable.